Hello everyone and welcome to Radio Spätkopf, your English language Berlin news show. My name is Yuri.
My name is Joel.
And I'm Dan.
Welcome to our audience. We're recording live at the Comedy Cafe Berlin on Weserstrasse. And on this episode coming, we're going to decode the Berlin election for you, giving a full rundown on what every party is promising, including our own candidate, Jöran Mandik. We've got a special guest on today, blogger John Riceburg, who has his own controversial opinion about the election. And of course, there's some news on public transport, donor shops, and the airport, just for a change.
You made it sound like our opinions are also controversial, and I don't think they are. I mean, Yuri's clearly the perfect candidate for our neighborhood.
We'll hear more why later.
All right. But first, some short news.
It's been a very bad year for wasps. Have you seen... Who here has been stung by a wasp this year? No one.
Or even had a wasp annoy them at breakfast or while eating a piece of cake or at the bakery.
It used to be that you put out jam.
Wasps.
Within seconds, 10, 20 of them.
What happened, Yuri? Why don't we have any?
It has been a very, very wet start to the year, which resulted in the wasps not being able to lay their larvae as they used to. And so they haven't been as many born this year.
Your news is that there's less wasps this year?
Animal Kingdom hard-hitting news.
Well, I didn't see you add anything to the news list today, Dan, so don't go and criticize it. I was very interested as to why there wasn't any wasps.
No, I'm glad to know why now.
I did speak about it on the weekend, off record, and now it's on the show. So it does make people talk.
Early rain, feel less pain. That's the wasp rhyme. Okay.
Joel, apparently the GDR could have saved the old Stadtschloss or City Palace from demolition for only 32 million GDR marks.
Yeah, I like this story because it's a fantastic piece of historical blaming going on here from the Bild Zeitung, which is like basically Germany's version of Fox News in print. Now, of course,
so you're saying like the people who aren't afraid to tell the truth.
That's right. Yeah, they're really telling it like it is. That's how it is. So as you know, or maybe you don't know, but there's a castle being rebuilt in the middle of the city, also known as the Humboldt Forum.
Wait, do you think there's someone who's listening to this podcast now that is not familiar with this story you've been running for the last 3 years? That's okay. Good. Continue, Joel. Sorry.
So the cost of this new palace is up to 600 million so far and counting. It's not going to be finished until 2018, and we won't be able to get in there until 2019. Well, anyway, I'm not in favor of this Schloss, as Dan has pointed out. Anyway, so there's some documents that have been recently unearthed that show that back in the 1950s, the DDR could have actually saved the original Schloss from being demolished. They did an internal audit and found that it would cost 8 million Deutschmarks, DDR Deutschmarks, to demolish it, or 32 million DDR Deutschmarks to restructure it, and they chose to destroy it with 19 tons of dynamite. And 23 years later, that's 1973, they built the Palais der Republik there as the parliament house of the DDR, also containing a concert hall and a bowling alley.
Joel, I don't know what this currency is valued at.
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I did a little bit of research.
Okay.
I found out that in 1951, Schrippen in Berlin cost 5 Deutschmark cents, which is pretty much what it costs now in euros. So just use the same numbers and it kind of works.
But what if the roll was gluten-free?
You would have been screwed back then, Dan, is all I can say.
No.
I love that the only options are demolishing or restoring. How about just like not spending any money and leaving it as is? Since they haven't done anything for 23 years after anyway, until they built that other palace.
That wasn't one of the options. You're right. That would have been free. But basically, what the Bild Zeitung here is doing is basically pointing the finger backwards and saying, well, if the DDR had just spent 32 million, then we wouldn't have to spend 500 million now to rebuild the thing. As if that was one of the as if that could have been possibly in the mindset of post-war. The city's half destroyed by bombs. We've got no money. We're trying to start a society here.
No money, but plenty of dynamite.
So, Jöran, you're just back from a little trip to Dresden.
Yes, and Dresden is known for Pegida as well as Baroque architecture, which is very nice. But I have also collected some other observations that I would like to share with you here today. One of them being, I went to the theater, which was over at about 10 o'clock, and was going to take the tram home, only to find that they only run every 30 to 40 minutes on a Saturday night.
Provincial.
this is supposed to be a metropolitan city. That was underwhelming and made me pretty glad to be serviced by the Berlin public transport system, which we do back into sometimes.
There had to be
Only
some
'cause we love
positive experiences as well, right?
Some who?
Positive experiences?
Yeah. One very positive experience was that I found out that in the GDR, soft serve ice cream was the shit. And still today in Dresden and presumably in other places in the GDR, they do still love their soft serve ice cream. So I went and got one. And for everyone here today, there's a photo of my ice cream behind me on the wall.
We're going to be doing Yuri's complete slide night from Dresden next week, if you want to come back.
You prefer soft serve?
Well, yesterday I did. Just to try it. I think they both have their days. Yeah.
Okay, that's very open-minded and progressive of you.
I'll chime in on your not enough buses and going around Dresden argument there, because I once tried to get a bus back from Dresden on a Saturday night at 10 p.m. and there weren't none. No more buses to Berlin. I had to stay in a park overnight because there was no hostels either. It was awful.
Scary.
Yeah.
This in not just now, but recently, 19 people were hospitalized after eating from an imbiss called Schienerdiener.
Schöner Döner. A bus full of
No,
visiting...
it's pronounced Schienerdiener.
A bus full of visiting students were taken to hospital for treatment after their lunch at Schöner Döner, which is somewhere underneath Potsdamer Platz. I don't know where. I always get lost when I'm trying to find an exit out of Potsdamer Platz train station.
That is a labyrinth.
It is. Well, they got ill. They had to get to a hospital. They were vomiting everywhere. Other tourists as well. It wasn't just the kids in the school bus. The imbiss was shut down for a few days, but reopened after laboratory tests found nothing was actually wrong there that they could find anyway. It's still open today, probably because only tourists go there and they don't read the news and know they shouldn't eat there. Now, the only reason I think this is noteworthy is that it doesn't happen more often. I mean, don't you think how bad hygiene do these places look? And only one time a year, or even like ever since I've been observing the news, has there been this kind of the poisoning going on in your doner shop?
Maybe it just doesn't. I certainly have eaten a bad doner and suffered the consequences. I mean, who amongst us hasn't?
Maybe it just doesn't make the news.
I think most people are already so hungover that they don't realize it's food poisoning.
Oh, and here's one more update. This is the latest disaster from the BER airport debacle. The train to the airport is now also running late.
Yes.
They're not finished building the thing that get us to the thing that they haven't finished building? Well, that's all sort of on schedule in its own way, isn't it?
The new/old BER airport was supposed to be connected to the city center by a fast regional train, as Schönefeld used to be. That connection to Schönefeld was broken a few years ago when they renovated Ostkreuz. And to reconnect it, they need to build a new rail bridge that will sort of curve around Ostkreuz and connect the Hauptbahnhof to the airport. Now we find out that the permit hasn't even been granted for this project. And that means that probably until 2019 there won't be any trains running there, except one going from the Hauptbahnhof up to Gesundbrunn and then going around the ring all the way to the airport, possibly making it a fair bit slower than the U-Bahn.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned.
But wait. There's I saw in your table here that there are a couple of S-Bahn trains running daily, right?
Oh yeah, there's trains running to the airport.
But they're running to the unfinished airport just to keep air moving through the tunnels,
That's right.
Which to me sounds like an amazing metaphor. Like an empty train pushing air through a tunnel to an unfinished airport. Like, that's basically poetry.
What can that be a metaphor for?
Let's hope they never finish it. We'll have. What would we talk about if they finish the damn thing?
All right, and now it's time for Radio Spätkopf's special guide to the Berlin elections.
Berlin's going to vote for its local council and city-state government elections on Sunday, September 18. That's exactly 2 weeks away. Now, that's, of course, what all those posters are for, in case you were wondering. It's pretty obvious. So who should you be voting for, and why, if you can vote, of course? Well, we're here to decode all the election posters and go into depth about what each different party is talking about with a critique on their policies and their graphic design. So, to kick us off, we're going to start with the party that is leading currently in the polls, which is the SPD.
In the latest poll, the SPD had 24%, which is leading all polls. That is still down 4% from their results in the last election in 2011. Their current leader is Michael Müller, who's also the current mayor, who took over for Klaus Wowereit a couple of years ago. And the SPD has actually been in power for 27 years, and 15 of those as a head of coalition.
So they can't exactly claim to be the change party, can they?
Well, their slogans all are Berlin bleibt, which means Berlin stays, this and that.
We stay, you stay, everyone's staying. Don't do anything about it. Just stay as you were.
Basically, they mean they haven't done anything wrong and don't want to admit to anything. We'll just keep going until it works.
I like that. I actually like that. It's fine. That's good.
We also collected a few points from their policies. They do want Spätis to stay closed on Sundays. Oh. Boo, we say.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's the opposite. Right. That's okay.
Yeah.
I realized that was like a binary statement. I got it wrong, but yeah, that's bad.
They do want to invest in more education, and they want to provide a free lunch for school kids.
Why aren't they doing it already, then, if that's what they want?
Well, they are in coalition with another party called the CDU, which we'll discuss next.
They're also against legal cannabis and for free kitas. You left that off. So
yes.
I think free kitas are good.
Free kitas.
I think like more money for parents in general, I think, is a good policy.
So
especially foreign ones. I think we should really, like, by incentivizing that to such a degree that people would feel like they couldn't leave, creating a sort of anchor baby type system, just through really, really progressive, generous benefits for foreign parents. I think that's a good... Anyway, that's just us. I'm throwing that out there. They're also using Tinder to find voters.
Oh yes, that's a little side note. A candidate in Treptow-Köpenick called Alexander Freier made a Tinder account just to connect with his votership. And he actually did get, in his own claims, he did get 400 matches, and they'll probably all vote for him.
I mean, shouldn't swipe right be for like the NPD or something?
You could have used this tactic. Why didn't you think of this? This is what we were expecting you to come up with. These kind of. So the SPD, they're all campaigning about bleibt, and they've got, Berlin bleibt bezahlbar, Berlin stays affordable. Well, my question is, well, if it's not affordable, and whose fault is that? You've been around, you haven't done as much as you could. I think they've really got a hard case making that they can do anything different, so they're really just hoping that people are just going to stick with it. Now, on the graphic design front, what do we think of their posters, guys? Any comments about the designs? This one here is one of the many billboards that went around that did not actually have Michael Müller front and center or at all. Most of them had Michael Müller in the background with like kind of a fuzzy out, so he was just sort of there, and he was meant to just... They didn't even have the SPD logo on some of them. It was just like, he's so part of the furniture of the city that you can't do anything about it. He's there, he's in the background of everything.
He stays.
This one here I found interesting, though, because all the other ones had Michael Müller in the background, except this one, which made me think, maybe that is Michael Müller. This is a picture of a drag queen for our listeners at home. Maybe he got dressed up. I was looking at the bone structure. It kind of works. You never know. Next, we're on to the CDU, who are the other party currently in power.
That's a terrible photo. For our listeners at home, this is a photo of Frank Henkel. Definitely, it's the back of a young boy's head in front of him at waist level, and he looks delighted. Who did they run that by? Jesus.
Well, the other photo of Frank Henkel that's out there is with the kid sitting on his shoulders, but they cropped it so that the kid has no head. So it's basically Frank Henkel with like a headless child on his shoulder. They had a pretty bad photo session with the kids in Henkel, and well, look, Henkel basically is having a pretty bad election all around. So he really pushed hard on his whole law and order agenda, saying he's going to bring more police. This is one of their slogans: "Mehr Polizei, mehr Videotechnik," which are more observation.
That's a
around
slogan.
This. That's on the posters, yeah.
That's insane.
Well, at least they're honest about it. We always knew that's what they wanted, but at least they have the decency to say it. And he expected that there would be some part of the Berlin population that would rise up and say, yes, this city needs more control. We're sick of these hippies running the place. But it turns out the exact opposite. He's lost votes dramatically, down to 17% for the CDU. They were up at 23% before. And they're now level with the Greens. Which is incredible. So where are all those voters going? Well, it seems like they're going to the far right, the AfD, who have gained in votes. We'll talk about them later. So his policy of pushing right basically has pushed everyone very far right, over even to the party further right than his own. So huge backfire there. I'm going to give a little rundown. If you don't have enough reasons for why you shouldn't vote for the CDU, here's my list of reasons why you should not. He forced Berlin to abstain from voting in the Bundesrat, that's the federal Senate, on a bill recognizing same-sex marriages as equivalent to straight ones. Berlin, liberal, free, cool, gay Berlin, was the only state in all of Germany not to cast a vote in that election. He made Görlitzer Park the most unfree, illiberal patch of Germany by calling it a special zone and getting rid of that 6-gram marijuana tolerance regulation. He wants to ban burqas. He's against dual citizenship. He's been using police as a weapon in evictions, sending in hundreds of cops to evict families for the benefit of international investors. He tore down refugee camps in Oranienplatz, and he's tried to chase them out of empty schools and other places. I don't really know what there is to say nice about this man, to be honest. So
he's a real Henkel.
He's a real Henkel. If you like your city safe, you like lots of police, or not even. If you like your city over-policed, then maybe he is worth a vote.
Next up, we've got the Greens, who are currently polling at 17%, which is pretty much exactly what they got at the last election. Their current leader is Ramona Pop, who is originally from Romania. And the Greens are actually the only party who have stated that they're fully backing the bicycle Volksentscheid, which is making quite some waves earlier this year. There was a rumor going around that they're against smoking in bars. I did some research into it and found out that they're in fact just against smoking on playgrounds and just want to protect non-smokers, but want to keep in place those exceptions that bars and clubs currently have in Berlin.
That would have been a vote splitter. I bet there would have been a lot of Greens, because they were kind of going for the something for everybody appearance at the moment. That's the Greens play right now. They've got all these friendly posters of people riding bikes and having fun and flying kites, and they're really going to like the party for families, the party for basically what the CDU used to be is what the Greens are trying to become in a way, in positioning themselves in that middle ground. But having going against smoking in bars would have made a few of their constituents stop.
Being against smoking on playgrounds is not like a real controversial stance, but it's a good start.
Yeah.
Towards I think I'd like to. Is there anyone who's into bringing corporal punishment for all smokers? Is that on anyone's? No.
In Singapore.
All right, fair enough.
Other policies that they include is that they want Spätis open.
Hey!
Just like Linke and Pirates also do. They're also against the A100, which we'll be talking about
What's
a little
the A100?
later.
The A100, it's a highway. They were building the highway from Treptow from Neukölln through Treptow, over the river, through the middle of the Club Wilde Renate and landing down at Friedrichshain, and eventually stretching all the way up to Landsberger Allee and beyond. So they're building another ring for the cars in the inner city. And the Greens are against it, and it was in fact what caused the downfall of the coalition between the SPD and the Greens at the last election, because the Greens walked out.
You could have just said highway.
However, we're not sure if it's going to cause the same rupture this time round. We're going to be talking about potential coalitions in a minute, so let's save that chat for later. But let's get into their graphic design. You got one more point there.
Well, they're also pro-legalizing cannabis and pro-gay marriage.
Okay.
Good. Okay, their posters.
Their posters. So the Greens had a very mixed poster campaign going on here. They had at least 3 different designs on the street that I saw, or were there more?
I saw 3.
3 completely different graphic design styles. The one we're showing right now for our audience is one, just a sort of big circle with words in it, like lots of different slogans. And I think this of all of them was the nicest looking graphic design. By the way, I should point out that our guest a couple of weeks ago, the typographer, actually made this font that you can see right here. This is his font.
Anton Kovit.
Anton Kovit made that font, yeah. So they had this one, and then they also had these other ones that looked like they were kind of hand drawn. They looked like they were
terrible.
You didn't like those ones?
Hated them. They're so ugly. They're like hand drawn little kids' doodles, or like cartoony 90s.
Okay.
Well, I think that was a play on what they do on a federal level with the guy Ströbel in Kreuzberg. Ströbel always has like this kind of rainbow cartoon thing. They thought they might try that for all of the candidates.
It's very old school hippie something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Those are nice.
Here we go. One vote yes, one vote no. So as well
Those
as
are
those
cute. They made it. I was like, oh, what a nice. They put their politics, and they,
Get out of here.
it looked like a party that'd be for gay marriage and legalized weed. Like, yeah, that was perfect.
And then they had a third one, which was completely different style altogether. I couldn't work out why. If maybe they just couldn't make a decision, so they just let everyone could choose whichever poster they wanted to use, or something for everybody, like I said.
Yeah, a bit confusing.
Okay, next up we've got Die Linke. Die Linke are polling at 17%, and that's up from
11.7 last time.
Their leader is Mr. Klaus Lehrer. And they are going down a kind of tough on rent increases line, as well as being multicultural. However, they've got one policy that we're not going to like. What's that, Jöran?
Yeah, interestingly, they're against Späti's opening on Sundays.
Well,
why would you just keep your mouth shut? Like who's gonna vote? So they're basically.
Well, there's
every
a
other
reason
thing
for it.
Okay.
It's like ideologically consistent. I mean, they're the party of the workers, and one reason we have closed Spätkaufs on Sundays, one reason is because of the church, not wanting anyone to trade, but the other reason is the trade unions don't want anyone to work on Sundays. They want to have the workers' day of rest. So that's the rationale behind it all. Of course, the workers also want to have a beer, so there's a contradiction. Yeah. So the Die Linke, now one of their posters that got everyone's attention was the one we're showing here, which says Berliner Speed, and
it says Berliner Speed, mehr Zug reinbringen, which is hard to translate because it's a pun, and it means give it some more oomph. Can be one interpretation of it. So, like, are they asking for better speed or
like better quality drugs?
But I think what they mean is that speed in Berlin shouldn't be synonymous with drugs, but rather synonymous with Zugs, which are trains. So I think criticizing the tardiness of trains.
They're criticizing. Is that what it is? Okay, here was my interpretation on this poster. I thought they're promising like faster trains. Like, it's going to speed up the trains. Trains going to go faster.
Yeah,
it's going to be like a ride. Get on, woo! Faster trains.
Well, more likely is the drug explanation, of course.
I like the fast trains. Moving right along. Our next party is Alternative for Deutschland, AfD. These are the right-wing boogeymen you've been hearing about. Well, not boogeymen, that's the wrong cliche. These are the right-wing nationalists you've been hearing about rising in the polls over the last few years all across Germany. Sadly, also here in Berlin, where they have got 10% of the vote at last poll. They're nationalists, they're against refugees, they're against gay marriage, they're against the depiction of non-traditional families in the media. However, here's one that they might win a few votes on, which is they're against the TV tax as well. The Rundfunkbeitrag, where you have to pay €17.90 every month to public broadcasting. Not sure how it really fits within the whole protectionist policies and nationalist policies, but whatever. They've realized it could win a few votes, and so they're going for it. Now, they had a hilarious poster campaign, hilarious / scary. Some of them were absolutely terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, right. We've got this
let's talk about the
Uber
hilarious
hipster on the poster behind you here.
And basically, they have one billboard out with a man with a scruffy beard saying, "My Moroccan drug dealer basically lives entirely off the state. It's not fair, and that's why I'm voting for Alternative for Deutschland."
What? Insane.
Yeah. So here we have the stupidest.
He's complaining
stoner
about
in
the
world.
state subsidizing his drug dealer.
Right. Yeah. And he wants his. I think he wants his weed more expensive, so he wants his drug dealer arrested.
I don't understand. Is that ironic? I don't.
The AfD also had another poster with some gay people in it, saying that we want protection against immigrants, against Muslims, which is also completely inconsistent with their policy since they're also against gays.
No. It makes sense because what they're afraid of is foreigners and coming and stealing their jobs as bigots.
Well, we can't have anyone else being a bigot, that's right. So the AFD have got a bit of they've also got someone on further right of them. There's also the NPD, which is another scary right-wing party, and this other one called the Berlin Bürgerbewegung, who were the original kind of nationalists, the original respectable nationalists in the city. But they've sort of faded out. We're not really sure what happened to them or why they didn't join up with the AFD. Their election campaign's been really lame. They're basically just putting big love hearts all over the place and expecting to trick people into voting for them, I think.
No, because it does trick me. Because I'm like, oh, mountains? Yeah, they must be hippies. And then hearts? That's like, what more? I mean, that's, yeah. I didn't know they were right.
Are you confusing this with Bergpartei?
Oh, maybe so.
Yeah.
We'll get to the Bergpartei later. All right, the last... we've got two more to go. This one's the FPD.
FDP, who used to be in federal government with the CDU, quite a big party, didn't even make it into the Abgeordnetenhaus at all in the last election. They only earned 1.8%, massive defeat, huge. They are possibly making a little bit of a comeback, just reaching the 5% hurdle at the last poll.
And their ticket into Parliament, at least they're hoping it is Tegel. They've hooked onto the Tegel airport closure as their thing. Their posters say, your ticket to Tegel. And their argument is that Berlin actually needs two airports, even when the new one may open. It won't actually have enough capacity, and so we still need the old one. That's pretty much their only really interesting policy. Other than that, they're just a general straight down the line Liberal Party who want low tax, low regulation. Here you go. They want English as a second bureaucratic language to be instituted. Interesting.
They're also the only party that are against the Airbnb crackdown to protect rents in Berlin.
They want Airbnb to be legal.
That's their liberal standpoint.
Right. So being a low tax, low regulation, low government spending party, the other thing they don't want to do much about is housing. They think housing is a problem in Berlin, but they want the market to sort that out and have just low taxes and low regulations to allow builders to build more, which is against pretty much every other party's policies. Everyone else is saying, I don't know about the CDU, but the other lefty parties are all saying, let's build more social housing, let's do more about housing generally. But
it must be just the Tegel idea that gets them 5%.
I think it's only Tegel. They're basically polling off Tegel alone. But if 5%, they'll be back in Parliament, and we'll see how that's going to affect later on the potential coalitions. But our last party to talk about is the Piraten,
who aren't polling at all. It seems like they won't be getting any votes. A fairly recent poll, not the most recent one, had them at 3%. Last time they miraculously, in a huge victory and upset of everyone else, got 8.9% in the election. But this time it looks like they probably won't make it again, which is like they made a few waves. They did some stuff with the BER, did all these inquiries into why shit's going wrong in the city. They did some good stuff, and then kind of party internal queries made it crumble, basically.
I've got a soft spot for the Pirates. Any listeners who know that. I liked their policies. I liked what they were doing. And I think they did a great job in Parliament, bringing out a lot of really necessary facts using their questions in Parliament. They did have their own internal disaster that meant that they had a breakdown. A lot of people leave the party. I still think there's a place for them, though. And I think they might surprise people, actually. I reckon they might get over that 3% hurdle and still scrape in a couple of seats at least.
And I think in my neighborhood, they're running Grumpy Cat.
Yeah, the Grumpy Cat's trying to get into Parliament, yeah. As well as like an evil clown and some other interesting characters. Now, the Pirates, I'm sorry, I like you, but you could hire a graphic designer. The Pirates really had the worst posters of all. You could tell they're computer nerds and not designers. And they were a bit of an eyesore, those posters, I've got to be honest. They did have one, though, kein Pflanz ist illegal. No plant is illegal, and a woman with a watering can, meaning that you should be allowed to grow marijuana. And I thought it was a little funny poster. I was standing in the street, actually underneath one of these posters, and some guy stumbled past me. I'm not sure what he was on. It might have been weed or it might have been beer. Anyway, he stopped, he stumbled, he looked at the poster, and he said, "Die hat recht, they're right." And then I said, "Dann wählen, go and vote." And he said, Ich will. Okay. That was a not kind of standoff. I thought, well, I'm not sure. But Yuri doesn't like this poster at all.
Yeah, I have to credit my friend Taylor for pointing this out to me. Keine Pflanze ist illegal is basically the same slogan as Kein Mensch ist illegal, which is a movement for letting in refugees, hosting refugees, making refugees comfortable in Berlin. I think that Keine Pflanze ist illegal, being the same slogan, takes away from the oomph of that other one and means basically that marijuana plants are to be treated the same as refugees. It's a bit silly. Like, just come up with a new slogan. It's not necessary.
I see what you're saying. I don't know if it's so drastic. I don't think it means we can never use that slogan again. I don't think it degrades the argument for refugees.
Get your own.
All right. So just the last noteworthy points to make about some other little parties. We've got Die Partei. They're the original prankster party. They have a poster that says, "Hier können auch Nazis hängen." Here we can also hang some Nazis. They've actually already booked SO36 for their election victory party, which I thought was very bold. There's the KPD, the Communist Party, who are going on Lohn rauf, Miete runter. I just think it's novel that you can vote for a Communist Party. I know you can't in Australia, and I don't think you can in England either. I'm not sure. I definitely can't in the US.
We only have 1.5 parties.
Right.
Just for the sake of journalistic correctness, they're called DKP.
Oh, sorry, you're right, yes. I mixed up my
DKP.
I'm getting confused by all my acronyms. We've got the horrible, nasty old NPD on the far right over there, who, they had an awful poster. It said, it was actually written in Turkish, telling Turkish people basically you should go home. Well, I couldn't be more direct. It couldn't be more nasty. And then we've got the Bergpartei, who are a kind of comedy party from Kreuzberg, who had this poster that we're showing here, which says Naturgesetz schaffen, basically boost the natural laws or strengthen the natural laws. And it's a picture of the Stadtschloss getting swamped by waves. So these guys won my vote because they put the Stadtschloss in one of their campaign posters. Thank you very much, Bergpartei.
Well, as we just ran down a few things, there's a bunch of stuff where parties overlap a lot, and the Tagesspiegel, we have to credit them, put together a really good infographic that you'll find on their website, where you can see which parties are how closely related to each other according to their answers on the Wahlomat. And it turns out that the CDU is quite close to the AfD. I think they had an overlap of like 73% or something. Other interesting bits were that the Greens and the Linke, there's a hair between them. They're very similar. And the Pirates are not far off them either. They all have large overlap. The SPD is leaning towards Greens and Linke, but is far away from the CDU and AfD. I guess all of this was mostly obvious for people who follow politics a little bit. Just a bit of background.
So that plays into a question of what's going to happen during after the election. How are all the parties polling? Well, this is how it plays out. We've got the SPD up ahead at 24%, followed by Die Grüne at 19%, CDU behind them at 17%, in line with Die Linke at 17%, AfD 8%, 10%, and the others all falling into an 8% category there.
Yuri being included in those, that 8%.
Oh, and the FDP at 5%. There we go. So how is this all going to play out? Because to win an election, you need a majority. So none of these parties on their own can form a government by themselves. So there has to be a coalition. The current coalition we have is SPD with CDU, but we know that is not going to happen again. And that's because those two parties have been fighting ever since they've been in power, or at least for the last couple of years they've been in power. And Michael Müller, the mayor from the SPD, has said he does not want to go back into another coalition with Frank Henkel.
And has also stated that his preferred coalition would be with the Greens.
Now, unfortunately, the Greens don't want to play. The Greens have said we don't want to play with Frank Henkel, mostly because he's been making all these horrible racist statements trying to win back the AfD vote, like the burqa ban. So Henkel's strategy of being tough on everybody has left him to be the only kid in the playground. No one wants to play with him, and it looks like the CDU will most likely not be in any coalition unless they have some kind of big surprise win and somehow score a lot of votes and are the first party on the day and are the ones who get to form the coalition. But in any case, going on the current polling from the most recent polls, it doesn't look like the CDU is going to be in a coalition after the election. So let's have a look at who could be in power. So we have the most likely inevitable outcome will be SPD, Grüne and Die Linke. because by the way, the SPD and the Linke can't do it by themselves. They don't have enough, so they're going to have an extra one in the mix there. So it's most likely going to be the Grüne. So they've got 60%. That's coalition outcome number one. Number two might be, and this one isn't discussed very much, but it's still there. It's the SPD, Grüne, and the FDP.
Yeah.
And in case you're wondering if there's any chance of some kind of on the right side of politics of all those parties getting together, CDU, FDP, and AFD, well, luckily they can't get anywhere near it. They're only at 32%, so that's never going to happen, unless there's some big swing in the vote.
We should say SPD, Green, and FDP are at 48% in the current poll, so very close. We might see a surprise comeback of the FDP in government.
It could. The other thing to note, though, is that all these polls are quite very low sample size, only about 1,000 people. And they also found out that 30% of people actually haven't even made up their minds. So there's a huge swing vote out there. So anything could really happen. But we're going to see one of these parties coming first, probably SPD, maybe Grüne. If the Grüne do come first, it will be a huge shift in Berlin. That's never happened before, the Greens coming first. It has happened in other states, so it is possible. And if that happens, it most likely means that Michael Müller might be out of a job, and there'll be a new leader of the SPD, and we'll have Ramona Popp as the mayor or the mayoress, no, mayor, it's the same gender-neutral term, of Berlin. And what would this mean on policy-wise? Well, we've also looked at all the policies that the different parties had and trying to figure out what's actually going to happen inevitably, because the parties most likely to form coalition have all said that they're in favor of it. So, Yuri, tell us.
We went through the Valomat, the online tool that goes through, I think it's 38 different policy statements, and the parties go yes, no, or neutral to all of them and give their reasons for it. We went through that whole thing and then looked at what the points were that most parties or all parties agreed on. And here's a list of what, according to those findings, will probably or inevitably even be outcomes after the election.
Let's go through these really quickly one by one. You go one, I go two, like that.
The crackdown on Airbnb. Everyone is in favor except the FDP, as mentioned earlier.
Berlin will likely welcome more refugees unless the AfD get in.
Tegel is very likely to be closed. Again, only the FDP and actually also the AfD aren't in favor of closing Tegel.
There's going to be more Milieuschutzgebiete. Those are those special zones that give you more rent protection and make it harder for real estate developers to turn private rental properties into private properties.
Again, only FDP against, and CDU is neutral. There probably won't be any free parking for e-cars, like electric cars, which was discussed. Only the Pirates are in favor of that.
There's going to be school books featuring alternative family practices with patchwork families. They're going to be allowed because the AfD will not be getting into power, probably.
Gay marriage equality. Lots of people are in favor, except AfD, and the CDU is also against.
Well, this one was a policy that was promoted by some. There was a policy pushed around that there should be a preference given to Germans when applying for social housing as opposed to all other nationalities, but that's not going to happen because nobody signed up to it.
There will likely be more mosques with minarets being built. That was a funny question being thrown in there. And only the AfD, again, are against that.
Now, hang on, are there going to be more or just not less?
Just no.
Well, is it like an active mosque building program?
No, it's not an active mosque building program. It's just like, yes, there won't be less.
There
not
might be more than less.
Got it.
They won't demolish any. No.
I want to ask you about this one. There's an introduction of drug checking stations is likely. What does that mean?
That's a point that's also been thrown around, which means that they might be putting up stations where you go with your pill or other drug and, I guess, put it in there. And that thing analyzes it, spits it out and tells you, oh, this has actually a lethal dose of some shit in it that you don't want. Or this is fine to take, have fun.
So not like a checkpoint to see if you have drugs, it's to see the quality of your drugs.
Yeah, yes. Drug safety. Yeah, I thought it might be a checkpoint as well, yeah. And there's a couple of other smaller ones on there. Oh, this one's interesting. The recognition of foreign degrees will be made easier, so you don't have to go through all that bureaucratic hassle to get your university recognized here.
And exceptions of the Nachtruhe, which means quiet hours in the nighttime, will still be in place for nightclubs.
All right, so that's probably what's going to happen no matter who gets, depending on who gets in power, but based on the most likely coalitions, those are the things that will occur in Berlin in the next couple of years.
And now on to Yuri's campaign.
Woo, Yuri!
How's it, Yuri? Did you win? That was the correct amount of smattering of applause. It's a thing. Okay.
Well, what's my program, Joel?
Well, Yuri is running as a candidate for Neukölln 1. We got him registered. We got enough people signed up. So now he will be on the ballot. You'll be able to vote for Yuri if you live in this part of Neukölln and only in this part of Neukölln.
And
now,
also have a German passport.
I've got to say, you haven't really done very much about this campaign. I was expecting your own posters out there. I had to Photoshop you a poster, and that's as good as it got.
We did a Photoshop competition.
Well, let's go through a few of those, actually, as we're talking. So we had to come up with a program platform for Yuri, just in case anyone decided that maybe they wanted to waste their vote. So, point 1, Späti Sonntag. Späti's open on Sonntags. Now, of course, this is a bit redundant since, who have you got? The Greens, the Pirates, the SPD are all on board.
SPD is not on board.
Oh, okay, just the Greens.
Greens, Pirates, possibly some others.
All right, so it might happen if the Greens get in and they're in a coalition and they can argue, maybe we'll get some Spätis, not being shut down on Sundays. Okay, online Bürgeramt. I like this one. You can send in your registration into the Bürgeramt as a PDF rather than having to line up. Good point?
Good point.
You're on? Yep, okay, cool.
I like it.
Next one was Wahlrecht für Ausländer. So foreigners should be allowed to vote at the full level, at the state level, not just at the council level like we currently are.
Yep.
And
then I would like Berlin to become more bicycle friendly.
All right, well, I've got some late entries here for you, Yuri. Do you want to consider some extra policies?
Yeah,
I've been thinking, okay, how about this one? I'm going to do this in German too, so you have to follow along. Weg mit dem
I'll translate.
Weg mit dem Frühgeburtstagsgrüßungsverbot.
Something, something, something. Birthday.
Joel, you have to explain this one yourself. It's your idea.
Get rid of the ban on saying happy birthday early. Who is in favor of this? Why do Germans do it? Who's benefiting? Who doesn't like saying happy birthday?
We discussed this
let's flip
beforehand.
it on its head. Who would be the loser if we introduce this policy? Is anyone going to get hurt by us announcing to Germans that thing we used to do where we tell people you can't say happy birthday early anymore? It's gone now. It just doesn't exist. Never did.
People might just sign up and say happy birthday to their grandma 10 years in advance,
Germans
and then
would do
find
that.
out that grandma didn't make it those 10 years. All kinds of consequences.
You get their birthday wishes in early.
There's a slippery slope here. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, how about this? Pre-sliced pizzas. No?
When you get a pizza delivered here, it's not sliced?
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's what I'm saying.
What are you supposed to do? Just roll it up? Shove it in your mouth like a gigantic burrito?
It's why I'm outraged.
You should. Okay, well, I was zoning out for a second there, but that's Yuri.
Since we did this whole project as a journalistic investigation into how politics work, which we successfully did and covered on Radio Spätkauf, also that being the reason why we didn't feel it too necessary to actually come up with a proper campaign.
I wrote 20 slogans. I'm trying to find them. What happened to that?
Yeah, bring them next time.
So my slogan that I made up for him was the Wahl der Wählberliner, which means the choice of the Berliner by choice, which I thought was very cool.
How about a picture of someone voting and we could say, Bild das Wahl? That sort of makes sense. Somebody got it.
When we went around and collected those signatures that I needed, those 45 signatures to become a candidate, what we did in order to build a campaign, potentially, was ask people to write down their policies that they would add onto my policy sheet if they could.
I remember a few, yeah.
So I feel like I should at least name a few of those, just to be giving those people the voice that they thought they would get on air. One of them was to start a program in which people in old people's homes, youth, get an apartment and have to look after old people a day a week or an hour a week or whatever it is, and that's sort of being an intergenerational exchange thing. Everyone benefiting. I thought it was pretty good. Another one was to
sounds like a good sitcom premise as well. Maybe we could fund it by videotaping the whole thing.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, what else we got?
Another one was to make all of Weserstraße and all the little side streets around a maximum of 30 kilometers per hour zone.
30 convos?
Kilometers.
Okay.
And also,
I thought it was too many people talking at once.
Can you Americans not even hear the word kilometer? It is, I know you don't use it, but is it like not even part of your vocabulary?
I know exactly what it is.
and at the same time, this person's idea was to get rid of all traffic lights. So just drive slow and like negotiate when you get to the crossing.
That's very interesting.
I actually think it can work.
I feel like this is people who listen to the show writing in, so I'm just be like, yeah, great idea.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, if everyone's driving at 30, that might work. But yeah, okay. Yep.
Is that just? I mean, like I know what a kilometer is, but is that fast or slow?
That's very slow.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, the last one was Joel and I got the signature of a very passionate older lady who was.
Wait, what? How'd you get this signature?
She was passionate about what she was talking about.
Oh, okay, I got you. Woo!
She was telling us about her work with refugees and helping them out to work through German bureaucracy, and was calling for someone to make it easier, which luckily someone did.
Yes, our good friends from Bureau Crazy, who are trying out to make an app for that exactly. And what should say, did you notice how that Bureau Crazy story blew up, by the way? That was like covered by The Guardian and The New York Times and The Washington Post and the CNN, all of it. They went nuts. It was fantastic. Those guys got a lot of really great attention and a lot of support and a lot of help. And, also, we should say thank you, which we didn't do in our last episode, to the 2 Radio Spätkauf listeners, or 3, sorry, who donated some money so that those Bureau Crazy refugee boys could actually come out to the Weekender and tell their story. Thank you very much for that. We forgot to thank you last time around.
Nice.
All right, so we've only got one more topic to talk about with our election coverage, and that is to get a completely different perspective. And for that, we're going to get a guest up. So could you please welcome to the stage at Radio Spätkauf, blogger John Riceburg.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. And
yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, Joel, I know you've got a birthday coming up in the next 364 days or so I just wanted to wish you a happy early birthday. That's the way we roll in the U.S.
That's why they do it. That's exactly why they do it. I knew there was a reason. John, we've had you on the show before. We're happy to have you back. Now, we've been here talking about why if you're going to vote, who to vote for. But you've got a whole different perspective, haven't you? Tell us your ideas about the election.
Yeah, well, I'm a Berliner at heart. You know, I've been here for almost half my life now. I've really sucked up the mentality of the city, and I hate it. You know, just like the natives do. And so we've got an election campaign where everyone's saying things are going to stay the way they are. You know, we've got the SPD saying that, but we've got all the parties want a coalition with the SPD to keep things the way they are. And I think the way it is, isn't so good. I think I don't know what our audience is like here, but I'm not an international realty speculator. You know, so I haven't made a lot of money based on the current positions, and I don't think we should vote for anyone. I think we should go in to the ballot office. I mean, I go there every time anyway, and I wait in line. I'm very polite. Go up to the people, and they say, "Okay, can we see your ID?" And I say, "No, you can't, because I don't have a passport, and I'm not allowed to vote here. And I work, and I pay my taxes, and I've lived here for 10 years, and you're not allowing me to participate in the political system." And they say, "Oh, yeah." And then and I say, sorry, I don't want to waste your time. I just wanted to register that. And they say, "Oh, well, thank you." And then I leave.
You actually go on polling day.
Yeah.
And give this little...
You make that speech to one person.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 or 3 people.
2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
And now you're getting to make it to our audience, too.
Exactly, yeah. But if I did have a passport, I don't think I'd vote for any of them anyway. I think I'd go in there and write some mean message on my ballot.
So your perspective is rather than vote, everyone should just go into the voting booth and blog?
Yes, exactly.
More blogging is the answer.
I think it's nice for the people who are checking the ballots too, personally. I mean, you know, because you're sitting there for hours and hours, check, and then, someone wrote down a nice message. That's cool.
What's your nice message going to be?
I haven't thought about that. I got still 2 weeks to work on that, but there's so many things one could say. Like the case, you know, there's 50,000 apartments that are empty in Berlin right now for speculative reasons, where they're just waiting for the prices to increase. And there's refugees living in in convention halls and stuff like that. So one message is Leerstand en eigenen, expropriate, put refugees in there, you know?
Is that amtliche figure? Is that actually official? There's 50,000 unused flats.
It's hard to know. I don't know. No, but it's it's a government estimate. It's a government estimate.
Oh.
They don't have people going into all the apartments and.
But it is
and checking.
an official estimate.
It's an estimate.
Okay.
Definitely.
I hadn't seen that number.
It's not something I made up myself. I don't think.
Right. So there are So expropriate the unused
That's one
flats.
message. Yeah. Or.
So do you really think, though, that an election like this one, where you have the AFD on the far right, 10%, and I mean they're rising, they're a danger. So if you want to like vote tactically and you want to get not have them in power, you do have to vote, don't you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at my watch right now. So it's 5 minutes till 7, and the news just came in. AFD is in second place in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. And that might sound like Siberia, but that's not that far away. You could be there. We could be there in like 60 minutes in a good train. And they're the second party right now, and something like that could happen in Berlin.
Just to explain, there's an election going on in the state next door, or actually it's 2 states up, but it's pretty close. Yeah. And they, as John just delivered the news, who was first up there?
SPD. SPD, then AFD, then CDU. Probably. That's the prognosis. Yeah.
That is quite substantial,
Yeah.
and that is quite scary. It is very close. So, I mean, for that reason, shouldn't we not be not voting?
Yeah, it is kind of terrifying. But then I think, who's going to get into government now? It's probably the Greens. And the Berlin Greens, they say some nice things, some nice sounding things. But I was there as a reporter about 2 years ago in Kreuzberg when those refugees were in the old abandoned school in the Ohlauer Strasse, and the Greens were trying to kick them out. And they militarized the entire neighborhood. They sent in 1,500 police for a full 7 days. They weren't even letting neighbors go to their apartments, and they were saying pretty openly that if this led to refugees being killed, well, so be it. We need to defend the abandonment of buildings. We need to get this abandoned building to be back in an empty state. And those are the Greens. That's the most pro-refugee party you can probably find on your ballot. And what's really that different about these parties? My feeling is having the Greens in government is just the same old racist crap against refugees plus bicycle paths, It's ideas like...
Wait, I don't get your opposition to bicycle paths.
No, bicycle paths are okay. It's like maybe we could have the police who are going to go at 5 in the morning and grab children out of their sleep and force them into an airplane and send them to a country they've never seen where they don't speak the language. Maybe those police could come on bicycles. That would be nice. I don't know.
That would be nice.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe when they're shooting rubber bullets at demonstrators to try to break up legal, legitimate protests, maybe they could use biological, organic, biodegradable rubber bullets, That's kind of the Greens for me. And the Linke is for me even worse. You guys know...
Is there like a hypothetical party that would be cynical enough to get your vote? Or is there like...
I got to say, Die Partei is really tugging on my heartstrings.
Yeah.
I mean, Kai Set, they've got.
I mean, you can at least throw away your vote on something that's funny.
Something that's funny. Well, you don't know how funny the message I'm working on for my ballot is. Maybe I can top son of one. The thing that bothers
Will that ballot literally get thrown away? Like when they see that?
Well, they're all going to get thrown away, right? They're not going to put them in a big ballot building to save them till the end of time, right?
I don't know.
No, but you guys know Sonneborn, the comedian who runs Die Partei? Seems like a nice guy, but he was in blackface a few years ago. Ich bin ein Obama. Not cool. I mean, I know Germans don't get it, the whole don't do blackface thing, but still. And he says he really wants to rejuvenate the system. He wants to get us back into parliamentary democracy. And I kind of think in the other direction. It's actually good if people say plague on all their houses, and we need to. I think it's good if people try to take politics into their own hands in this city. And like one example that I was just thinking of is all over the city you've got precarious employment. Not just in Spätis, but in big. Publicly owned companies. You've got people working for minimum wage with limited contracts who could get fired at any time. And most of the parties running are promising an end to that. But most of the parties are also responsible for creating that situation in the first place. And I don't think anyone is going to be helped by trusting these parties. What people have been doing, there's been a whole series of strikes this year at the Botanical Garden, at the Technical Museum. There's a strike coming up on Wednesday at the Charité. And these are people saying we're not going to trust elections to get better pay, to get equal conditions. We're going to go on strike. We're going to fight for this. And the people at the Botanical Garden looks like they're going to win. Charité. I think that's a much better model anyway. Don't trust one of these parties that says we're going to lower your rent, but get organized with your neighbors, protest in front of the offices of the realty speculators.
All right, so you're going for...
You could do both.
You're going for a classic get involved in community organizing rather than parliamentary democracy argument.
Just because you participate in democracy doesn't mean you can still protest or do your thing.
And Dan's coming up with the classic you can do both argument.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I will say that in Berlin, the most effective movements against rent controls have been those that have been started from the ground up, like the ones running in Wrangel-Kiez, which is called the BISM movement, the BISM Bleib movement, and they were very effective and remain so in bringing these issues to light. So there are things you can do on the ground rather than just vote. I have to say that from my perspective, as someone who can only vote on the very local council level, I wouldn't throw away that vote, and I would really like to have more of it. Actually, I'd like to have a vote on an upper level. So I would gladly take your vote, John, if you want to give it to me.
I would totally like to have a vote too. I want my offensive message on my ballot to be counted, to be read and counted and documented as well. But it won't be this year. Maybe sometime soon.
John, one last pitch. If you really want nothing done, vote Jöran Mandik.
I hadn't heard of him. It is convincing. The birthday thing is really convincing me, actually.
Well, John, where can we read more of your stuff?
Yeah, I write a weekly column on the Ex-Berliner website, and you can find me on Facebook. I blog there as well. And here every couple of months. I hope to be back again soon.
We'll have you back. Thanks again, John, for coming and giving us your views.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Well, there's only one more thing to say about the election, and that is, if Yuri does want to get elected, what does he actually have to do?
Yeah, we did some research into what would have to happen just for anyone who does want to run. What needs to happen? So we looked into the numbers from last year. The Wahlkreise, so the the electorates have been reassigned a little bit, so the numbers will be slightly different. And it's also, there's no mandatory voting, so we'll see how many people go to vote. But based on the numbers from 2011, I found out that I would need about 2,000 to 2,500 votes to get to 10%, and a tenth of that, so 200 or like 250 around there for 1%.
You need 250 votes for 1%.
Yeah.
That seems achievable.
That seems achievable.
Wow, if we don't know it was that easy, maybe we should have tried.
The problem is...
That's actually doable.
The problem is, I think these things cost a lot of money to do. Putting up these posters, running a campaign, it takes time and money. And I inquired and wanted to see, is there any way for candidates who are trying to get elected to get their money back, at least after the fact or beforehand? And the Landeswahlleiterin, so the chief of state elections, she sent me an email explaining that every candidate who wins 10% or more of the vote receives €2.56 per vote received.
So you need 2,500 votes
to get any money back.
But then you'll get like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 euros back, something like that.
That's right.
So we just pay people $1 a vote.
Has anyone thought of this before?
Right? It's $1 a vote. We get $1.50. That's 50 cents each. You know what? I'll take a smaller cut. Even though it was my idea.
Anyway, that's another reason why we're not actually campaigning. It costs money.
All right. So
all right, that's our wrap on the Berlin election. We hope you all are very informed about who you may or may not vote for.
If any of you can actually vote. All right, Joel, so we've got a new type of public transportation coming in our new future, possibly. It's called an O-bus.
Doesn't that sound cool? O-bus?
Cool is a stretch, but go ahead.
Anyway,
Is the O-bus
my
robust?
public transport session coming through. So the BFLG is currently reviewing its options for new connections to the city's outskirts as it plans to grow. And the BFLG's bus chief, Mr. Thorsten Marek, told the Berliner Zeitung that one consideration is bringing back what are sometimes called trolley buses, but here in Germany are called Oberleitungsbus or O-buses. And these are basically like a cross between a tram and a bus. They're a bus with that connects to cables above, and they drive around. And they're meant to be beneficial because they don't have any noxious gases spewing out the back of them and polluting the city. Instead, the pollution is done somewhere else at the power station.
We did have them here before.
We used to have them. In fact, the first one was in Berlin in 1882, amazingly, and they ran in different forms up until 1973. And you'll still find them in a lot of cities in Eastern Europe, and even here in Eastern Germany, in Eberswalde, for example. So, I don't know. I like public transport. I like new, interesting forms of it. Someone else out there might
I'm
too.
against it.
What's the benefit of these?
Trams
over,
are the
like,
worst. Trams are the worst. You have like a fixed path, so you can't go around anything. But you also you don't have a train goes underground or above. There's traffic, so you get stuck.
The fun thing about these buses is they can bend quite far. They can bend at least one lane away from the electricity, so they can go around a parked object.
Well, touché.
Joel, the Berlin police have already introduced a new computer program to predict where crime will happen next.
What?
Whoa.
It's called Krimpro. And it sounds a bit Minority Report.
Do they pronounce it like
I
that?
hope so.
Hey, can you go down to the Krimpro office and say if there's any future crimes happening?
So it does sound like Minority Report, just without the touchscreens and the imprisoned fortune tellers. So the police have started using this Krimpro software, and the reason they say they're doing it is because break-ins in Berlin are up 18% year on year. That's up to 30,000 in 2015, and they say they're going to stamp it out with Krimpro. So basically the way it works is they stick in all the break-ins into the database, and it calculates where the most likely one will happen next.
And then they go there and wait?
What they do is not exactly explained.
I don't know how this
And I'm
plays
pretty
out.
sure it's not down to the next, the house and address. I think it's just general area.
So they figure they patrol there, and then no one will. Okay.
It's not that that's not fancy when you actually explain what it does. It doesn't really sound that scary.
So if a neighborhood has a lot of break-ins, then the police will go there?
That's right, Daniel.
Very futuristic.
Well, let me tell you what their previous strategy was, as it turns out. They were sticking pins on a map in the wall still. Can you, that's a bit old-fashioned.
Hertha's having a fan club membership drive?
We have to include a bit of sports news, as we've been trying to do. The reason I wanted to include this was because I noticed that their slogan is printed on all their posters around. Well, first they're saying, quick, become a fan before everybody else does, which I think is pretty funny because, they're trying to use, a restriction, you might miss out, Right. Because Hertha had a very good year last year. Let's not forget, they reached the semi-finals, and they're doing pretty well, so they're expecting a lot of new members. I think I'm going to be a fan. I think I'm going to get on board the Hertha train. And their little slogan, I really liked it, is we try, we fail, we win. I thought that's nice. That's got some built-in, storyline. It lets you realize that things don't always go well.
Sure.
So, I've been looking at too many ads this week.
I prefer an empty train to nothingness.
Guys, I've been on the bus earlier and went through Treptower Park and saw them being some people there put up fences and tents and all kinds of infrastructure, and it made me think, is there a big music festival happening here?
There is a music festival happening in Treptower Park next weekend. We don't say its name because they didn't give us any free tickets. We did ask. The festival is being headlined by Radiohead and Kings of Leon and New Orders and others, and it actually finally got its permit to operate a few weeks ago. It had been advertising without this permit, just hoping that it would all go well. Lucky for them, it did. However, it seems pretty hard to understand how this festival is going to make any money. They've had to pay a caution to the city of $3 million in case anyone damages the grass. And
that is hilarious.
They've had to provide alternative accommodation for up to 1,500 residents who are really unhappy about the noise. That's because a bunch of residents got together and complained about there being one noisy day a year. They got some of the former Soviet Union countries to complain about it as well, sending in letters from their diplomats because there's a Soviet monument next door. But their objections were ignored, probably because, well, maybe they should be. I don't think one day of noise is anything to complain about when you've got the rest of the year to enjoy a massive park right next door.
Right.
And also because if the festival organizer had actually not given that permit to the if the city government had not issued a permit, then the city government would have been liable to pay a massive, massive fine to the festival organisers because it was the city government that had suggested they go there as a replacement for Tempelhof, where the refugee shelters are now. That's where the festival was originally going to be. So it would have left the city government with a massive bill, although I wonder if anyone ever did the calculation and thought about whether the bill would have been higher than the amount they're going to make now that they've had to pay for all these grass, caution, and free hotels. Anyway, if you're going to the festival, have a nice time.
It's time to go.
But before we leave, Dan, have you got any gigs to plug?
I think my next place I'll be on stage will be at Comedy Cafe this Saturday as part of the Stand Up Saturday show. So that's got a fun lineup hosted by Josh Telson.
Right
so
on the stage where we're
show.
sitting.
Yes, right here. This is the same place. Good point.
We have a question from one of our listeners, Mark, who wrote in to ask if we know anywhere you can have a bonfire in Berlin on British Bonfire Night.
What?
And,
When's that? 5th of October? Was it?
Remember, there's something November. They have a little like rhyme. Is there a British person in the crowd? 5th of November, there we go.
October doesn't really rhyme with remember.
I don't know where there is. If anybody who's listening to the show knows where you can have a bonfire in Berlin, write in and let us know so we can tell Mark and so he can burn some stuff. And that's about all we have time for. So thanks for coming along. Thank you to Josh for doing the sound. Thank you to the Comedy Cafe for having us. And
thank you
audience.
to Lena for filming.
Thank you for filming. And thank you to the audience for coming along and cheering.
Yay.